The Vermont morning was so clear and peaceful that Claire Jennings almost forgot she was starting from scratch. Her old car stopped on the gravel road leading into Pine Hill, where hundreds of tall pine trees towered, forming a deep green canopy that blocked out the sky. The smell of pine and damp earth filled the air as she rolled down the window. The early autumn breeze was cool, and the only sound was the wind whistling through the woods. Ahead, the house appeared, small, moss-covered, with a sloping roof and steamy windows. The hand-carved words, Jennings' Cottage, were still faintly visible on the peeling white wooden gate. The house had belonged to her grandmother, then been empty for 10 years when the family moved away. Now Claire was back, not because she wanted to, but because she had nowhere else. Jack, her 11-year-old son, sat in the passenger seat looking around. "Mum, is this really our house? It belonged to your grandparents before. Now it belongs to us. It's a little old." Claire smiled, her voice as light as the wind. "If it's old, we fix it. If the trees grow, we clean it. As long as someone lives there, the house will come back to life." She said that to herself, more than to her son. Claire used to be an accountant for a small company in the city, but the pandemic caused the company to go bankrupt. Her mother in Vermont fell ill. Her father had long since passed away. Everything seemed to lead her back to this road. The place where her childhood was associated with the smell of pine resin, the smell of her mother's baked apple pie, and the laughter in the wooden kitchen. When she got out of the car, the ground was soft. The smell of moss wafted up. The pine trees surrounding the house rustled in the wind, their gnarled trunks like old sentinels whispering to welcome the returnee. Claire took a deep breath, holding her son's hand. "Here we go." The wooden door opened, dust flying up and glistening in the sunlight. The smell of dampness filled the air. Everything was covered in a thick layer of dust. Tables, chairs, cupboards, picture frames hanging crookedly. Each piece seemed asleep. On the mantelpiece, a half-broken ceramic vase still held a few dried brown flowers. Jack covered his nose. "Are we really staying here, Mum?" "Yes, at least until Grandma gets better. I thought Mum would find a new place in town. We need to save money, son. And I want to be near Grandma." Claire's voice trembled slightly. She looked around the room. Not just the house, but the place that held a lifetime of memories. She opened the window. Light flooded in. Dust drifted like mist. Outside, the pines rustled, the wind carrying a clean scent. That afternoon, Claire called her old neighbour Martha, who had helped her when she was little. She was still there, her voice old but warm. "Oh my, is that Claire? Are you really back?" "Yes, I need to fix up the house. Do you know anyone who can help?" "Yes, there are people in the neighbourhood still working around here. We'll come by tomorrow morning." The next morning, a pickup truck stopped in front of the gate. 3 middle-aged men got out, sunburned, honest faces. "Hello, Mrs. Jennings. I'm Paul, and this is Rick and Sam. Martha said you need help cleaning the house. We're happy to help." They got to work right away. Rick brought the lawnmower. Paul swept around the porch. Sam cleared the pile of fallen leaves that was as high as a hill. Jack helped start a small fire to burn the leaves. The sight made Claire stand still. She felt as if time had turned back. The sound of saws, the sound of wind, voices and laughter all blended together. Paul said as he worked, "When Mrs. Jennings was alive, this porch always smelled of apple pie. She was a good woman, giving candy and apples to the children in the village." Claire smiled. She kept that habit until the end of her life. I remember. Each of their stories seemed to stitch together a broken memory. At noon, they sat on the porch. Everyone ate bread and baked apples Martha had brought over. The pine breeze was cool. Jack lay on the grass, pointing to the sky. "Mummy, the tree is so tall it touches the clouds." "Yes. Grandma used to say that pine trees never bow their heads, even in snow or storms." "Then you will be like a pine tree," Claire laughed, stroking her son's hair. "I believe you can do it." In the afternoon, while cleaning the attic, Claire discovered an old trunk. She opened it. Inside were a few notebooks, a music box, and a faded photograph. It was of her as a 5-year-old, sitting on her mother's lap under a pine tree, the sunlight shining on 2 smiling faces. She stroked the photograph, her throat tightening. At the bottom of the trunk was a handwritten note. "If you are reading this, it means you are brave enough to come back. Don't be afraid to start over, because this house will always welcome you with open arms." Claire sat down on the wooden floor, tears streaming down her face. She had known, for a long time, that her daughter would return one day. days that followed, the house gradually changed. The walls were repainted, the porch was swept clean, the windows were shining. Jack set up a small swing under the pine tree, and Claire planted lavender along the path. Every morning, the smell of coffee and the sound of birds mingled with the rustling of the pine trees. Every afternoon, mother and daughter sat by the window reading books. In the evening, they lit a fire, listened to the old radio, and talked about small things. One day, while cleaning the kitchen, Paul stopped by and smiled. You know, when she was alive, your mother used to say, "Home is where you're allowed to be weakest." Claire looked up and smiled. Maybe that's why I find strength here. Then, one afternoon, Martha stopped by, carrying a bag of freshly picked apples. She looked around, her eyes shining. Oh, Claire, this house has really come back to life. Looking around, it looks like it did decades ago. Thanks to everyone's help, I did it. No, thanks to you coming back. Her words made Claire speechless. Winter came early. Snow was falling sporadically on the roof. Pine forest was white. The fireplace was blazing. Jack lay wrapped in his blanket, eyes half closed. Claire sat by the window, writing in her diary. I used to think starting over meant failure, but now I understand it is a way of growing up. This old house taught me that the only thing that never goes away is love. Outside, the wind whistled through the pine trees, but instead of being cold, the sound was as gentle as a lullaby. day, the neighbors came back, bringing apple pie, willing gifts, and stories. The house was warm. Laughter filled the air. Jack played with the children, and Claire made tea for everyone. Tom, the new neighbor, said to her, "You know, people call this house the house under the pines." Everyone who passed by stopped to look. They said the sound of the wind made them feel at peace. Claire smiled softly. Maybe because it's not lonely anymore. When the guests left, she stepped out onto the porch, snow falling white in the yard. The pine tree stood still, proud and gentle. She said softly, "I'm home, Mom." The moonlight shone on the pine trees, sparkling like thousands of glass drops. January, Vermont covered in snow, but in the little house, the fire still burned. Claire taught Jack to bake. They listened to music and drew pictures. Jack drew a picture of mother and son standing under the pines, shovel in hand, snow covering their hair. Under the picture, he scrawled, "Home beneath the pines, where you and I smile." Claire hugged her son, her eyes wet. "Thank you for believing in me." Jack smiled. "Thank you for bringing me home." Spring has come. The snow has melted. The ground is soft and wet. The smell of fresh grass and pine resin is fragrant. The pine trees are darker green, and new buds are beginning to appear. Claire puts flowers on the table, hangs new curtains, and opens the door to let in the sunshine. She writes on the last page of her diary, "I am no longer afraid of beginnings. Under these pine trees, I have learned to breathe again, to love and to love life. Every time the wind blows, I hear my mother, my father, my son, all blending together like a song that never stops." She puts down her pen and walks out onto the porch. The wind caresses her hair. The scent of flowers blends with the scent of pine. In the distance, Jack is swinging on the swing, laughing loudly. Sunlight filters through the pine trees, spreading gold on the ground. Claire closes her eyes and says softly, "Peace is not where we go, but when we dare to stay." The story ends in the rustling sound of the pine forest, like the breath of the earth and sky, of people who have lost their way and then found their way back. The once deserted little house under the pines is now filled with laughter, light and love. And there, single mother Claire Jennings finds herself again.